to the family of Levi Jackson. I offer my personal condolence on behalf of the Bethel AME Church, Sons of Allen, Sunday School, and Bible study. I also offer condolence. This is an interesting moment to reflect, or an interesting place to be to reflect. I'll tell you why. I met Levi in 1973. I had just gotten out of the Army, young guy, and bought a brand new car, bought a 1973 Corvette. Levi had a Mustang Corvette, new car. And so in Hampton, one of the things that some of the folks would do, especially young guys like ourselves, we cruise around, just cruising. And so that's how I met Levi. In the cruising scene, we crossed paths, and even though we had differences, I was a Chevrolet guy, he was a Ford guy, we still connected. And so through that relationship, we continued to come together and to see one another. And family had some other similarities. We were born, our birthdays were the same, we were born on the same day. He talked about, what he was doing and about his mom's. His mom's worked for NASA, and as a matter of fact, I worked for NASA. And so I had crossed her path. We both had hands that were made to work on cars, and we shared that too. And as time went on, we had other things that allowed us to see that we had a lot of similarities and who we were and where we come from. Our parents had both raised us in the church. We knew how to behave, we knew what to do, but we were both young. 1973, we were young people, and we were doing what young people did. We had big fun. And so as time went on, our relationship wasn't as close, but we saw one another. And as it turned out, I was able to come to this church. I wasn't a member of Bethel when I met Levi. As it turned out, I came to join this church and had an opportunity to actually see and meet his father, Levi Sr. And of course, I knew his mother already. And so that relationship was reinforced by the meeting of his parents and getting to see some of the things that made him who he was. And so it's unique in the sense that there's not many opportunities I've had to talk about folks who I've met early on in my life and part of my riotous and prodigal self, but have come to know and come back to my roots where I came from. So I was able to come back with Levi to see him where he too came back to his roots.
All right.
Later in his life, he came back and the same vigor, the same enthusiasm that we had when we were in the streets, we use that here, serving God.
All right.
And so I stand just to say that Levi epitomizes the strength of who we are as people. I said to someone as I went over to visit, and it's interesting, as we hung out when we were young, and some of my last visits, and actually the last one was maybe a week and a half or so ago, I went by to see him in the rehabilitation center. And as you know, he couldn't speak anymore. He was not able to communicate as he would like to. But somehow in the midst of that moment with him, as he lay there and our eyes met, and we exchanged those long looks, I just felt like he was saying something to me. And I reached down and just touched his hand and embraced him and held him, sat on the bed with him for a while, and the sun was shining through the window, and we had that moment. And it seemed as if we could connect it again in that moment of just sitting there, and there was some comfort, and I felt in that moment of touching and just feeling that comfort. So I'm thankful for the privilege of having known me, having had those moments, and having these memories now, and sharing with you how he had come back. We've had our times where we've been away, but he came back.
All right.
He reconnected, reaffirmed, recommitted his life to where he was when he first began. So I thank God for the privilege. I thank God for how he has moved in all of our lives. He's allowed all of us to have moments of reflection and gives us opportunity to come back to who we know we need to be with. And so, last but not least, this is important to the motorcycle guys who here. I want you to know we had that connection too. You know, in his latter days, he didn't have a big bike. He only had a little small scooter.
All right.
Yellow Stream. And you know, what's so interesting about that, you know, it was his means to get around. He couldn't walk, couldn't move around as much as he'd like to, but that scooter allowed him to be mobile again. And it was so painful to hear when he came and told us, somebody took my scooter. My scooter's been stolen. I said, oh my God, that's terrible, Levi. And so he just, you know, he held his head down a while about that. But then in one of our Bible studies, he was in Bible study, and he stood up doing a testimony time. He said, I just want to stand up and say something. You know, somebody stole my bike, stole my scooter. He said, thanks be to God, I got my scooter back. His testimony was that God had allowed him to get his scooter back. And so it just goes to show that, you know, over time we might have been angry about who did it and who got it and all that kind of thing. But in his latter days, he was willing to thank God for the blessings that he realized because of him. So I thank God for having known Levi and ask again his love and blessings and comfort to his family. And we as Bethel Church will certainly miss and did really love Levi Jackson. Amen.